everyone, this is Pete, and welcome back to Atari ST A to Z, a series of short playthroughs of Atari ST games, some which I grew up with and some which are new to me. Today is one of the former. This is Xenon, or possibly Xenon, I've never been quite sure. This is a shoot 'em up developed by the Bitmap Brothers and one of the more well-known games on the Atari ST. It's a very, very good shoot 'em up that was very well received back in the day. The ST was actually the lead platform for this for once. A lot of games were developed on Amiga first and then ported to ST, but Xenon, whatever, actually came out on ST first and was then ported to Amiga, Amstrad CPC, Commodore 64, DOS, MSX and Spectrum. There was even an arcade version of the game, but this was based on the Amiga version rather than the Atari ST version, so, well, we lost out there. The working title for the game was Kelly X, and in fact this is the name that I knew this game under in the first place, because we had a dodgy pirate copy of that was stored under the name Kelly X because it was a slightly earlier version of the game. And indeed there's still a few versions of that prototype out there in the wild. It's still fully playable and everything, it's just got a different name. It was widely praised at the time by magazines for being a pretty solid implementation of an established formula. A lot of magazines said that it didn't really do anything new, but what it did really, really well. There was one key innovation that it had though, which was the fact that you can switch between two different vehicles. You can drive a tank or you can fly a ship, and both of those are useful in different circumstances. So let's take a look at how all that works. And let's play Xenon. Anyway, let's go.
Right, here we are with Xenon. I still don't know how to pronounce it. I'll figure it out though. Anyway, this is a really great shoot 'em up for the Atari ST that I've always had a lot of fun with. The sequel tends to get a lot more attention, but this is still pretty worthy of note. So let's play. So for some reason, you start at the top of the first level, fly all the way down to the bottom, have to start again. Look at that video sequence, revolutionary. So in Xenon you start with this tank thing, which moves pretty slowly. You can speed it up by collecting R icons, and you can switch to a spaceship by tapping the spacebar. And that allows you to shoot stuff that is up top. So back down to the ground. Alright, looking good. I'm never quite sure of the context of stuff in this, but the various enemies in this game always reminded me of things that I'm sure they're not. Like those things we just saw, they reminded me a bit of fried eggs and ladybirds and stuff. So Xenon's got a few interesting things to it. So we have the different power-ups that you can collect that work in different ways. So currently I've got those two sort of fixed outriders. I can pick that up and have one that trails along behind me like that. And you can pick up the Fs to restore your fuel. Your fuel gets drained if you take damage, so your fuel is basically a damage meter. And you can also take damage from some explosions in this game, so you have to be quite careful. So any of those things that shoot out shrapnel, you have to be a bit careful of. Yeah, there's just some really cool effects in this game, like the way that the shadow for your ship moves when it's at different altitudes and so on. It just looks really neat. And generally speaking, it's just a really slick game. I always enjoy playing. It's got good music, satisfying sound effects. I know there are any sort of crappy typical ST sound effects, but they do the job. I got homing missiles now. Now we are talking. Oh, L for lasers. Love this thing. Oh, homing missiles only last for a little while, though. You'll see that on the weapon readout at the side of the screen, there's only a sort of a certain amount you can use. And it's boss time. This game was one of my earliest encounters with a boss. And I was never very good at defeating this one. So let's see if I'm any better now. I think the thing that confused me is the fact that it took so long to beat. I just wasn't sure if I was doing it right. As you can see, what we got here is a pretty conventional pattern-based boss. There we go. Easy! And then we continue onwards. And I think... Is that the end of the level? No, it can't be. Yeah, so we've gone from lasers to side shots now, which you can only use while you are flying. So you actually have to be quite careful in this. You don't really want to just blindly pick up every power-up there is, because you might end up picking up something that is not as good as what you've got at the time. But then having two of those things training you is quite good. It means you can cover quite an amount of the screen at once. But I still prefer those fixed ones. I prefer having a sort of fixed firing arc, if you like. We take those on. Oh no, that was silly. That was very silly indeed. So the Bitmap Brothers were really well respected in the ST era, and it's not hard to see why, because the actual performance of this game is really nice. Okay, it judders a little bit here and there, but on the whole, the movement of this game is really smooth. The scrolling is smooth. The action doesn't slow down excessively when there's lots of things going on screen at once. You again. I already beat you. This thing always used to remind me of a gorilla for some reason. I'm not entirely sure. Oh, I'm dead. Let's have one more go at that, shall we? I can do better than that. I'm pretty sure I can get up to the second level by now. I'm sure I can do that. Surely. Little one. Onward. Brave little tank. Not sure why you seem to automatically go into ship mode at some points. I wonder if there's something triggering that, or if I got this set up in a weird way. I don't think I have. But it seems like, almost like when you run into certain things, it automatically switches into ship mode. No, I didn't mean to do that. So Xenon 2, if you've not seen before, is quite different to this in terms of presentation. Whereas this is all very technological in metal and so on. Like this, the background of that is sort of the stereotypical sci-fi metal background that you saw quite a lot in the era. Whereas Xenon 2 was very widely praised for its very organic look. I just found it an interesting contrast because in a lot of ways it almost felt like Xenon 2 didn't have a lot to do with this first game. I don't know if there were story connections or anything, because to be perfectly honest, I never actually played Xenon 2 back in the day. I always wanted to, but for one reason or another, it's one that we never actually managed to get hold of. I just remember it having a lot of love and attention on it because of things like its soundtrack. Later era Bitmap Brothers stuff was very much known for its musical soundtracks and the fact that they often collaborated with famous electronic dance music outfits to do the main soundtracks for their games. So the original Xenon was sort of before that was a thing, but certainly Xenon 2, its main theme was a fully digital piece of music that was very exciting at the time. Oh no, I'm gonna die. Oh, one thing I am noticing in this game is that we don't really seem to have... It's not a case of we don't really seem to have. We flat out don't have invincibility frames. Which is a little bit awkward. I think those transformations are occurring at scripted moments from the look of things, almost. Maybe not. I'm just trying to go if there's some button combination I'm pressing without realising it. Oh well, doesn't really matter. Alright, could very much do with restoring some fuel, please. Well, this is not a good state to reach the mini-boss in, is it? Oh, look at that lack of fuel I have. I'm going to die. There we go. I've talked before about research and games, and one thing I came up that was quite interesting when I was looking into this game in particular was one of the reviews of this was talking about it as if it was an arcade version. An arcade conversion, rather. And that wasn't the case at all. So this game, as I mentioned in the introduction, was an ST... developed on the ST as its lead platform. And so for a magazine to say that it's almost as good as the arcade version makes them look a little bit silly, really. But it's just one of many signs that we've seen in this series that, you know, we criticise a lot of modern game journalists for not knowing what they're talking about or getting things wrong. But it was very much an issue back in the day as well. So, if you think the old days were some sort of golden era, then I'm sorry to disappoint. But, well, they weren't. In some ways they were. There's things that happen now that would never have happened in those old days. And on the whole, I think I prefer that, but certainly the issues we have surrounding things like research and... How do you hit that? I had no problem with this last time. Why are you not hitting the thing? Oh, well, anyway. So maybe I can't get to the second level. Let's hold that there, because I don't want to drive you too nuts with my incompetence at Xenon. But anyway, that is Xenon by the Bitmap Brothers. Very good shoot 'em up. Very challenging shoot 'em up. A lot more challenging than I remember. But there you go. Enjoy. Have a go. Check it out. And check out the sequel as well. We'll probably check out the sequel on this series at some point, but since that starts with X, and we're currently on X, it's going to be a little while yet before that comes around, so feel free to check it out in the meantime. It is worth your time and energy. Anyway, as always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again next time. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please help out the channel by leaving a like or a comment and subscribing. New episodes of Atari A to Z are on Tuesdays and Atari ST A to Z on Thursdays. Check out atariatoz.wordpress.com for a full archive. Do please also check out my other projects moegamer.net, where I explore Japanese and Japanese-inspired games from yesterday and today, and videopackgames.wordpress.com, which aims to catalogue the small but well-formed library of the Philips G7000 Videopack computer, also known as the Magnavox Odyssey 2. You can also support my work on Patreon or buy me a coffee. You can find links to do both down in the video description. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.